Thank you, Jonathan. Yes, absolutely. Iain Cox, Cyber Information Security Systems Professional. It's a professional certification, globally recognised and controlled by IFC Squared. But more than that, I have been in IT for something like 40 years. I graduated way back in '84. And ever since then, I have been at the sharp end of tech, either coding or architecture, security architecture. I designed part of the new security architecture for HSBC, which is now live globally. Over 5 billion people using that infrastructure across the world. And today I run a small cyber security business which specialises around ensuring businesses are secure and making sure that their architectures and their cloud architectures are actually safe to operate. Well, the big news in cyber recently, of course, is the MOVEit hack, which hit BA, Boots, lots of other people. And effectively what that meant was that a lot of personal information was released to the web, and it particularly hit really payrolls and so forth and so on. Huge organisations, obviously, very much aware, trying to play down what's happened. But a Russian hacker group has put their hands up and said, yep, we're responsible, Klob in fact. And it's actually very indicative of what's happening in the world today. I think one of the things we need to understand and be very aware of is that increasingly there are significant state groups which are playing a major role, and there is a nexus now. So we have organisations in Russia, in China and in Korea who are state-sponsored and are hacking. This means they have huge resource and they are actively pushing on the bounds of where we are today. So anywhere where there is financial or personal data, so we're certainly seeing fintech, finance, banking, insurance, medical, a lot of medical hacks going on, and really it runs across the board. Some very interesting information out of the UK government this year. It shows that 39% of small businesses will suffer a cyber attack, and that rises to 70% of larger businesses. Exactly what that attack will be, we don't know, but attacks are there and they will happen. Interestingly enough, 80% of those will involve identity. So that will be a leaky password or a spoofing of somebody's identity or a disgruntled employee type attack. Yes, well, okay. So I think the ones that are very preeminent today are ransomware. Now, you can actually go onto the dark web and you can commission ransomware as a service. Believe it or not. I know that sounds absolutely incredible, but yep, it has got to that level whereby some of these offshore groups will actually provide the frameworks and execute the hacks for you, which is actually terrifying. Beyond that, the next ones that we need to look at are the phishing attacks. That may be simple phishing or spear phishing or whale phishing. Now, whale phishing is where you actually target a member of the senior management team and effectively you're playing to their ego. And what you're getting them to do by clever phishing social engineering means you're getting them to release the data the hackers need to break into your network, to break into your systems. And I think this is very clearly proven to be a major source of issues today. And it does come back to the 80% that we were referencing a minute ago. I think also it's very clear that ransomware and phishing they're different sides of the same coin, but they are very powerful attacks. The third one I think we need to look at is the disgruntled employee. You can also speak to man in the middle, but let's talk about disgruntled employees. Somebody is already inside the fence and they've either been dismissed or they've been upset by the business and they're deciding to get some form of recompense. And because they're already inside the fence, they're able to exploit what's going on. And we have various ways to defend against this. One of the things that is becoming increasingly important today is identity analytics. What this is about is understanding what permissions you or an individual has. So what we find tends to happen is that somebody joins a business, they do well and they're promoted, or they move jobs within the organisation. Their permissioning status isn't changed, it's augmented, it's added to. So that after somebody has been in a business a large number of years, they have fairly unconstrained access to a lot that's going on, and they can do pretty much anything. And we end up with a lot of role creep. So this is why, from a security point of view, I would talk about role-based access control or attribute-based access control. And with these two models, what you're doing is you're saying that a job, a role, has a certain scope, and that you create permissioning to support that role and no more. The idea there being that if you change role, you change permissions, a complete set of permissions, rather than simply have more permissions grafted on. This constrains what can happen. It was also very important to raise the concept here of four eyes control and separation of concerns. There are many roles in businesses whereby in procurement or contract assignment, people have the ability to create, purchase, sell, do things, dispose of assets. And if we are going to put proper governance around that, then what we need to do is to ensure that there are more than one set of eyes on that, so that we have a complete and sensible audit trail, hence separating the concerns out. Okay, that's a really good question. Now, the way I like to think about this, I think this is a very important question, because cybersecurity is fundamentally a business question. It's not a technology issue. And what I find when I go into most businesses actually is that the senior management team tend to regard cybersecurity as a technical problem that can be fixed technically. The first thing we need to do is to understand what our business assets are. If you were going to sell your business, what are the assets? How would you value that business? Because those are the things you need to defend, and therefore you need to be able to value them. So this means data, it means intellectual property, it means just ideas generally throughout the business. It means inventions, patents, legal documentation, personal information. So we need to be able to do a value on that, and we need to understand what happens if we don't have access to that information all of a sudden. What's the impact on the business? We then need to build a plan that says, I am prepared to spend X on defending a particular asset. And this is important because I think a lot of people think security at any costs. Well, actually, no. If an asset is worth £1,000, there is no point in spending £3,000 a year on defending it. We actually have to scope the size of our defence to be proportionate to the risk. Those assets need to be owned by the senior management team, and there needs to be governance that flows down to support that framework. We then need to build what I would talk about as defence in depth, which means that any set of assets has not just one protection, it's not just encrypted, it's not just got a firewall between it. There are a range of assets that protect each asset depending on its class. And I would also very much make sure that all the assets were not accessible from the same place. So even if somebody has broken in, then actually
It's limited.
It's limited.
Scope, yeah.
It's limited scope. Somebody asked me today, actually this morning, they said, if somebody does commit a hack, then how long is that going to stay there? Well, of course, the answer to that is, how long is a piece of string? What is the hack? If it's a ransomware attack, then they're going to be demanding to pay a ransom to release the software. And that may be a one-off, but you don't know that they haven't actually left some Trojans hanging around. That may recur. Or if it's happened once, how do you know you're clean, even if you've paid the ransom? Now, we know the Post Office earlier this year, number 66 million, that was a ransomware attack. But actually, how do we know what happened? We don't know that it won't recur. The other sorts of attacks that you might have, it might be PII being pumped out of the business. There is a very interesting piece of work which was done by Lockheed Martin last year. It's called the Lockheed Martin Cybersecurity Kill Chain. And it defines a 7-step process of how a cyber attack takes place. What happens is it starts with reconnaissance. So depending on the value of the assets that they're chasing, the hacker or hacker group will spend a lot of time doing serious research about a business, about its network, about its websites, about its email, and they will work out how they are going to get in. We then move to a weaponization stage. The weaponization stage means that they are planning the attack. It then goes through a delivery phase and eventually to an installation. So this installation is, we've actually broken into the environment technically. We are now installing malware, and once we've installed that malware, we then move over to command and control. The command and control is the attacker will remotely control that malware. It will act then in the final stage. That action could go on for years. Mm-hmm. So actually, it is really important that we understand and stop this stuff. That is a very important piece of information, I think, this kill chain, and understanding how to disrupt that and how to create security around that. I think what we end up with is a powerful piece of intelligence for ourselves. If we try and build a kill chain ourselves, that actually provides a defense. What I mean by that is, if we were to imagine that we were the attacker, how would we build that kill chain? And then how would we go about defending against it?
Yeah.
Because that leaves you in a good position. But I think also today, this goes into software architecture, because I feel very passionately about how a lot of our modern applications are put together. We shouldn't have exposed databases. What I'm saying is there should always be an API in front of a database. Nobody should be able to get to it. There need to be layers in between, and there need to be layers so that the business logic has to talk to the UX. It can't talk directly to the front end, can't talk to the databases. It's layering our software defense. I will come back to the Move It hack and BA. So what they were trying to do was move payroll and personal data. There was a thing called a zero-day exploit. Zero-day exploits are called zero-day because they are exploitations which have not been seen before. Therefore, they are harder to defend against. We now know that that was very expensive. It impacted a lot of people and many companies. What they needed to do to defend against this was have proper endpoint protection in place. That endpoint protection, if they are choosing the right package, will continually monitor what's going on. There's threat analysis that can be done, whereby intelligence is created from the logs and so forth and so on, and you map out what good looks like, what's normal. Then you have threat hunting, which goes the stage further. So you're looking at what normal looks like, and then as soon as something goes wrong, the threat hunting solution will shut down and isolate, sandbox the machines where it's detecting that abnormality. And I think that is vitally important for any large organisation, for any organisation today. Yeah. These things are actually not expensive. And being able to deploy good threat hunting software will save tens of thousands of pounds. It becomes proactive. You're going onto the front foot. Because obviously a zero-day exploit by definition hasn't been seen before. And this leads to, unfortunately, the holes and the weaknesses in normal AV software, which obviously it does a good job. I wouldn't ever be without my AV software, but it does rely on its signature files and its heuristics to be able to detect when something is going wrong. Whereas you move to the threat hunting, you're using AI, you're using advanced analytics to detect patterns of abnormality. And as soon as they occur, you're coming in, you're shutting things down. The tool is set up that way. And actually, they're not just tools. They actually involve human interaction. The best tools in the space have AI and monitoring, but they ship logs. And what happens is that as soon as an abnormality is detected, a human being is involved to actually say, yep, that's an incident, and escalate immediately. So that removes the need for tolerances. For example, I run one of these pieces of software myself, you won't be surprised. I was upgrading the access software for my cyber wallet, my crypto wallet. And as soon as I did the upgrade to that piece of software, this piece of software cut in and it said, what's going on? And I could say, yeah, it's fine. Yeah. But it immediately alerted. And I think that kind of proactivity is actually the only way we're going to get to any kind of safety as we move into the next period. Yeah. One of the things that has become evident is that cybersecurity by 2025, in other words, 2 years out, is going to be worth globally towards $20 trillion. A vast sum of money. It is already, if it was a world economy, it would be somewhere between the 5th and 7th largest world economy. So this is a problem that's not going away. I think every single business in the UK, it doesn't matter the size, needs to have a concern over how it's going to protect itself, protect its assets, and manage the cyber risk. I think the second point is that it's clear, even with use of ChatGPT and the AI technologies out there, they're not going to cover the cyber threat entirely. The cyber threat is about finding new ways to do things, being inventive. They're clever guys. AI generally works on large data and patterns and understanding those patterns. It's not going to catch the zero-day event. Sure. We need to build security in to our architectures, to our environments. It needs not to be an afterthought. We can achieve security. We'll never achieve perfect security, but it will be considered built-in part of the architecture. As I say, it's not an afterthought. Coming on from there, I think it's important to understand that this is a management problem, a senior management problem, and we need, as business owners and managers, to be responsible for the assets that are under our control and to think about what the cost will be to the business if those assets become unavailable. Thank you for your time.